He has allowed the inmate to run the asylum today, apparently. It was very interesting when Johan was discussing, what the sort of sermon series would be for this sort of period of time. He came up with these I am statements. And I remember sitting in a very distinct meeting, a very distinct meeting where we tried to brainstorm a million I am statements, and we sent in a bunch, and we had a whole bunch of choices, most of which were shot down. And then we ended up with this list. And I was supposed to preach here if I had been here throughout the summer, and I couldn't get away without saying something. So Johan was gracious enough to allow me to preach today. And it just so happened that the I am statement for the day was, in Christ I am destined. And when Johan said that, I giggled because it felt a little prophetic. Leaving to go to a new job, ideas of destiny can fit into our heads. And one particular scripture was screaming out to me this week as I thought about that. And now we'll read from Luke 15, verse 11 to 32. Then Jesus said, there was a man who had 2 sons. The younger of them said to his father, Father, give me the share of the property that will belong to me. So he divided his property between them. A few days later, the younger son gathered all he had and traveled to a distant country. And there he squandered his property in dissolute living. When he had spent everything, a severe famine took place throughout the country, and he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to one of the citizens of that country, who sent him to his fields to feed the pigs. He would gladly have filled himself with the pods of the pigs' eating, and no one gave him anything. But when he had came to himself, he said, how many of my father's hired hands have bread enough and to spare, but here I am dying of hunger? I will get up and go to my father, and I will say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven, and before you I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Treat me like one of your hired hands. So he set off and went to his father, but while he was still far off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion. He ran and put his arms around him and kissed him. Then the son said to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. But the father said to his slaves, quickly, bring out a robe, the best one, and put it on him. Put a ring on his finger and sandals on his feet, and get the fatted calf and kill it, and let us eat and celebrate. For this son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. And they began to celebrate. Now his elder son was in the field. And when he came and approached the house, he heard music and dancing. He called one of the slaves and asked what was going on. He replied, your brother has come, and your father has killed the fatted calf because he has got him back safe and sound. Then he became angry and refused to go in. His father came out and began to plead with him, but he answered his father, listen, for all these years I have been working like a slave for you, and I have never disobeyed your command. Yet you have never given me even a young goat so that I might celebrate with my friends. But when this son of yours came back, who has devoured your property with prostitutes, you killed the fatted calf for him. Then the father said to him, Son, you were always with me, and all that is mine is yours. But we had to celebrate and rejoice, because this brother of yours was dead and has come to life. He was lost and has been found. So my mother tells a story, which will come as a surprise to no one, that when I was a little toddler even, that when they would have guests over, I would come out with my box of toy instruments. It's a true story. And I would hand the toy instruments to the various guests at the party or at the gathering, and then I would tell them when to play and when to not play. Now, I don't know if they enjoyed this, but I certainly did. And some would say, well, Max, you were destined. You were destined to make music. You were destined to lead people in song. You were destined to do this. But when I hear that, I don't know if that's really quite how destiny works. Webster defines destiny as a power that is believed to control what happens in the future. I'm immediately brought to the music in my life, and I think of Carmina Burana. Those of you know, if you don't know it, it's the giant piece that opens every sporting event you've ever seen or watched. Oh, Fortuna. The whole piece is about fortune, and about how no matter what we do, the fates are constantly rolling. That our destiny is laid out before us far before we even start going, and regardless of the choices we make, the things we do, there's nothing we can do to change it. Few ideas are probably more controversial in religion or culture, and few ideas, this idea of destiny, have been more written about, cried about, made music about, anything about, than this idea of destiny. This idea is horrifying in some. Think about it. We all make a certain series of choices every single day of our life, every year of our life, every 10 years of our life. And to think that those choices, those good deeds, those acts we do don't matter because what's going to happen to us will happen anyway, seems like a bad idea. And rightly so, it has led many bad people to do many bad things. Many people believe their destiny is to have power, their destiny is to have money, their destiny is to live life in a way where they don't have to worry about others. Others, though, find this idea of destiny comforting. The idea that the mistakes we make, the human error we do, won't matter because there's a plan for us, and that these little events are part of that plan. So is it horrifying or beautiful, this idea of destiny? I don't know. Perhaps it's both. When I was in middle school, I grew up in Kent, Ohio, which is in the northeast area of Ohio. And when I was in middle school, there was a basketball player at a high school just down the highway. And this basketball player played for a small Catholic high school in Akron, Ohio. And it was funny because we kept hearing these news reports of people from all over the country going to watch this high school kid play basketball. It was really quite unfair because this high school team and this kid beat basically every single team that would ever show up. But people came from all over the country. This player was LeBron James. And when LeBron James was in high school, I mean, I'm sure you all realize, you may have heard a story on ESPN or something, but the hysteria in Ohio at the time, when it came to the NBA draft, where was he going to go to Cleveland, was a hysteria of which I've never seen. People wanted this kid who showed greatness from a young age. They wanted him to fulfill his destiny. He was going to be Cleveland's sports hope, born and bred in the state that he would play in. And he did that. He played well. But then he left. He left. He had quick success. But he didn't maintain the type of star power, the type of idolatry that he got when he then eventually returned to Cleveland. And with open arms, the billboards went back up. The stadiums were full again. And he took us very close to winning the championship this year. Now, he may be the prodigal son, right? But the problem is, most of us aren't LeBron James. Most of us, sadly, are probably not that exceptional at anything. Most of us are probably average at a lot of things, and above average at a few things. I certainly am. I may have fooled you all for all these years, but I'm a very average piano player. And compared to many of my colleagues, I'm a very average singer. So what does it mean for us? What is our destiny? If we don't show some kind of great talent, if we don't show some kind of great skill, what is our destiny? We have to make a choice. This idea of the prodigal son story is it's an important passage to me. Because it's one of the first times when I was hearing scripture that it ever meant something to me. But it didn't mean what I think it was supposed to mean. So I think I was a sophomore in college and I was singing a church gig somewhere, a paid singer somewhere. And the pastor got up and he read this passage that I just read to you, and he gave the typical sermon. The message we're supposed to yield from this is that we should forgive, that people go and make mistakes, and that even when they come back, we shouldn't try to make them feel bad. We should welcome them back with open arms because they're back. But I remember sitting back and listening to this story, listening to this sermon, and I didn't get it. Because this prodigal son sounded like a jerk, right? He's a jerk. He makes his father give him the money his father had worked his whole life for, and then he wastes it all. And then he goes and works menial labor for a while, but then he gets fed up with that. And he goes back to his father. And the person in me that likes justice, the person in me that wants this to go well, wants the father to say, great, now go in the field, and I want him to love him. I don't want him to hate him. But I want him to welcome him back and throw a party. So when I first heard this story, I just related to the elder son. The elder son who comes back and says, I've done all this work for you all these years. I have done everything you have asked me to do. I have respected you. I respected your property and your things. And yet, you haven't thrown me a party. I related to him. I think we all relate to him. How often in our lives do we work for something hard and someone who works less hard gets further than us? How often do we look at the events in the media and we see people who work hard every single day to make money, yet we see people in the tabloids who make millions upon millions of dollars for doing nothing? It doesn't seem fair. And this story to me didn't seem fair because, if anything, the elder son was destined for greatness. He was a hard worker. He did everything he was supposed to do. But instead, he was destined to be disappointed. He was destined to struggle. And we are destined to struggle. And odd as that sounds, I think perhaps that is our destiny, to struggle. And that sounds negative, I know. But struggle isn't all bad. The research and the writing of Brené Brown, who writes a tremendous about, and has done a lot of research on shame, and has done a lot of research on the struggle of living and dealing with our pain, writes that life is a constant struggle. But through that struggle, we find ourselves. We find who we are, perhaps we find our destiny. But this is not terribly appealing, is it? It sounds sad. It sounds like we'll continue to work and work and work for some promise that's down the road that we can't see. And there's no immediate gratification. And we live in an immediate gratification culture. I grew up in an immediate gratification generation. That's what you all think of us, I know. And it's probably true. Yet it is this struggle that is what binds us, and I think is what fulfills us. One of my favorite pieces of poems of all time is Brahms' German Requiem, which he wanted to call a human requiem. And in the first verse, in the first movement of this piece, he quotes Psalm 126, which says, "Those who sow with tears will reap with songs of joy. Those who go out weeping, carrying seed to sow, will return with songs of joy, carrying sheaves with them." Basically, if you plant tears, if you plant blood, sweat, and tears, you will reap joy. You will reap happiness. This is the strange thing about destiny. It never lands us where we think it's supposed to land us. And why should it? What's the point? What's the point of trying to live your life in a godly way, in a good way, in a meaningful way, if you know all the answers? If you can cut the corners and get to where you're going faster? Because our destiny is not to be wealthy. Our destiny is not to be rich. Our destiny is to connect. And our destiny is to learn. In this story, we have three people whose destinies were not what they intended. The prodigal son felt that his destiny was to take this money and live the life, probably make more money, search fame. But instead, he was destined to see hardship, and then destined to see the beauty of forgiveness. The father was destined to disobey custom. The father was destined to love his son endlessly and painfully. I think we often don't look at the father's perspective in this story. How painful it must have been for him. How much pride he must have had to swallow in order to allow his son to come back. And how painful it was to him that the elder son came back to him and said, "Why are you doing this?" The pain of that must have been unbearable, but it was his destiny. It was his destiny to feel that pain. And finally, the older brother. The older brother was taught the hardest lesson. Is that the work we do in our life, whether it is being a parent, whether it is being a musician, whether it is being a businessman, whether it's being whatever it is you are, our destiny is to work so it is pleasing to God, and it is pleasing to the world. It is not to receive a reward. I see myself, when I view myself as a music director and a musician, I believe I'm a servant of something greater than myself. And I'm lucky because the music field lends itself to that sometimes. I get to make music for people. I get to bring volunteers together who in their free time give their time to this church and give their time to music and make music. I serve them. And I wonder often what would happen if other people in other fields would view their lives as service. If they would take the profit margins off of it, the salary off of it, and they would view what they do as service. I wonder how that would change our world. I wonder what it would do to us. We do good because it changes lives. And we all know it does. Anyone who's ever been on a busy subway drop something and someone miraculously, never happens, but every once in a while it does, someone comes and helps you pick it up. It changes your life. It changes your outlook on humanity. And look how simple that was. And we're all told in church all the time to do good deeds and to do nice things, and we probably leave Sunday mornings a little better, and we probably tip a little better when we go to a restaurant afterwards, and maybe we're a little nicer to the long line at the grocery store when we go later that day. But really, it is your destiny to be good. It is your destiny to connect with people. Again, the beauty of being a musician is my whole life is about connection. My whole life, music making is all about connection. And I do this for the people. I do it because there's nothing greater, there's no greater service to God, there's no greater service to our world than to connect with each other, to make something greater than ourselves. The reason this is a motivating principle to me is because when I was an undergrad, again, the kid who conducted his family as a toddler never stopped being loud and never stopped making music. And I found that I could sing, and I love singing, and I love being on stage because people applauded for me. And who doesn't like when people applaud for you? I mean, you saw how long I stood there. I just And that sort of love of that sort of love, young love of self, sent me to undergrad to go be a voice major. I had no desire to teach, really. I had no desire to lead choirs. I had no desire to sing in choirs, because why should I hide my voice? Why should I tuck my voice away for the service of others? This is my instrument. I am a singer. But I had a miraculous teacher. A miraculous teacher named Dr. Dirk Garner, who put me in my place, who was kind and loving to me, but constantly never letting me be a bad person. And this man introduced me to another great man named Dr. Joe Miller, who happens to be the head of choirs at Westminster Choir College, my mentor. And that motivated me to move out to New Jersey. And my move out to New Jersey, by complete happenstance, landed me here. It was not my destiny to be a musician, but it was my destiny to leave what was comfortable, to leave what was my home, and to build a new home. That was my destiny. It was not to be a famous singer, it was not to be the greatest choral conductor ever, but it was to meet all of you. And that, I believe, is my destiny. Destiny brought us all into this room. Destiny brought us all here. But the question is, and the final question is, where does choice come into this? If everything's so laid out for us, why does it matter what we do? Well, I don't know. But I'm not 100% sold on destiny yet. So why waste your time? Why waste your time hoping tomorrow is going to be better, and why not make today better? I count myself one of the luckiest people on earth. I get to do what I love every single day. I don't make a lot of money doing it, but I don't care. Because I get to meet people like you, and I get to make music with people like this, and I get to be inspired by people like this, and I get to do it in a beautiful space. This church's destiny to me is to continue doing what it's doing. It has a mission that shocks me every day. The mission that it takes its gifts and it does not hoard them, does not hold them close to its vest. It takes its gifts and it goes into the community and it changes lives. With music, with food. And there's something very important about that. Compendium. That not only do they give them food, but they give them what makes life worth living, which is art, which is beauty, which is education for their children. So in closing, thank you.